Good evening, everybody. This is Lori Spencer. Welcome to our weekly Monday night RFK Jr. Campaign Supporters Meeting. Thank you so much for making time in your day to join us here. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's wonderful to see you guys coming back week after week for these meetings. This is how we build a sense of community. This is how we get to know each other, compare notes on the news of the week, and share ideas. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. I see we've already got some folks requesting to speak. I see you. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make some kind of brief opening remarks, and then we're going to open up the floor and get the conversation started. So if you'd like to speak, please put in a request, and we will get to you as soon as we can. Here at the top of the meeting, I just kind of wanted to review what has been an absolutely amazing week for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I keep a close eye on what he's saying. I watch all of his interviews. Just this past week, he did three really powerful interviews. There was one with local New York radio station where he came right out and said in no uncertain terms that the CIA killed his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. He's said it before, but that really, really took off. The New York Post picked it up. Next thing you know, every media outlet in the world picked it up, and it became the headline of the week that, here's the nephew of JFK literally saying that the CIA killed his uncle beyond a reasonable doubt. That's really powerful stuff. And he said it again. If you saw his interview with Russell Brand, which was fantastic, I hope everyone gets a chance to watch that interview with Russell Brand. That was incredibly powerful. Also, Bobby did a great interview with Megyn Kelly this past week, which is also worth a look. So I hope you'll find time and add those to your watch list. And also this week, Bobby's been tweeting about a lot of really important and interesting things that no other candidate in the race thus far is even trying to say. He tweeted about the revolving door for defense industry lobbyists at the Pentagon, which I thought was incredibly important. He's also been tweeting quite a bit about the war in Ukraine, and specifically saying that the U.S. provoked the war in Ukraine. You sure aren't going to hear any other candidate in the presidential race say that. All the while, we're just shoveling billions out the door to Ukraine. Congress just passed another aid package this past week, another $40 billion, while at the same time, we've got hungry people and homeless people in America. And he tweeted about the Biden administration cutting food stamps, which is absolutely true. He also tweeted about the crushing of the middle class, the falling incomes of the middle class. He tweeted about censorship again, which is one of his favorite topics. And of course, he's still censored on many social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram, and to a large extent, YouTube. He's, as I found out the hard way, I'm still in YouTube jail for daring to post this podcast on YouTube. They have censored me twice, put 2 strikes on my channel, removed those podcasts. Now, YouTube's fine with it if you make a video saying he's a nut, he's a loon, he's an anti-vaccine public health menace. Those videos, of course, YouTube has no problem with at all. If you support Robert F. Kennedy Jr., though, and his positions on certain issues, you know the issues I'm talking about, they will shut you down. Another thing that Bobby tweeted out this week, which I thought probably set a lot of Democrats' hair on fire, is he talked about closing the border, as we have this amazing crisis going on right now at our southern border after Title 42 went away, and we've got people flooding in down there like crazy. Future Biden voters, no doubt. But he wants to close the border until we can get this thing straightened out and have an orderly, legal immigration process into the United States, which again differs greatly from the Democratic Party and President Biden's policy. And perhaps most importantly, for those of you out there who may have supported Trump in the past, maybe you were hoping for a Trump-Kennedy ticket in 2024, Bobby put out a tweet a few days ago throwing cold water on that idea. He said, absolutely, positively not. Under no circumstances will he ever run with Donald Trump. So I guess that settles that. Or maybe not. In politics, never say never. You never know. Politics makes strange bedfellows, as they say. And that is the name of my new podcast on Scott Ritter's network, if you guys are fans of Scott Ritter. And Bobby tweeted about Scott Ritter this week yet again. I know he's a big fan of Scott's, and I am too. And I hope that you guys will join us every Friday night on Strange Bedfellows. We do talk about Kennedy quite a bit on the show, and I hope that you will join us there. Also, I wanted to give a plug. I don't know if Sophia Eric is here. I invited her tonight. If you're not following Sophia Eric, that's Erik, Sophia Eric, here on Twitter. She's a campaign volunteer who is organizing weekly campaign supporters meetings on both Zoom and Facebook. And I believe there's a meeting tomorrow night. Forgive me, I'm not exactly sure of the time, but you can get all the details on Sophia Eric's Twitter feed. If you take a look at that, you can attend those meetings. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make the Zoom meeting tomorrow night. I have some other plans, but I do plan on attending those meetings from now on. And those are actually officially sanctioned by the Kennedy campaign. So you might want to do that. Also, Sophia is a volunteer organizer. If you've been looking for some volunteer work to do, some opportunities within the campaign, she can hook you up. So you might want to reach out to her via DM and ask her how you can be of service, or just attend these weekly meetings on Zoom and or Facebook. I can't attend on Facebook because I'm banned from Facebook for having opinions that Pfizer didn't like. Let's just put it that way. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor. Those are my opening remarks. I just want to get straight to the meat and hear what you guys have to say and hear what's on your minds. If you would like to speak tonight, you can put in a request, raise your hand, and we will come to you as soon as we see you. And first up, I'm going to go to Hal Hewitt here, who has requested to speak. And I'm going to go ahead and add you now, Hal. So you should be able to unmute your mic and join the conversation. Good evening, Hal.
Hello. Well, I'm joining you from the Big Island.
Ah, great. Aloha.
Well, here's a funny thing. I live on two big islands. The one I was born and raised on is Vancouver Island. It's 3 times the size of Hawaii.
Ah, yeah.
But Hawaii's my other home. My dad's down there. And this RFK situation has turned into something really hopeful that we can turn a lot of things around the world. So I'm doing everything I can on both these islands. Actually, I'm on 3 islands, but that's another story. And I'm new to your group, so I'm just introducing myself here. And like I'm working really hard here in Canada. British Columbia, in particular, is really under the thumb of the worst mandates and bio-fascism that I know of in the world right now. So like I know that Kennedy can help solve this whole thing around the world. So that's why I'm here.
Yes.
And I'll be listening for things I can do to help, particularly in Hawaii. I'm trying to learn about how even the U.S. primary system works. Anyways, I'll just
or doesn't work.
Well, super delegates, like, yeah, it's a bit different than what we got here. But in any case, I know that if like there seems to be a real groundswell of momentum towards Kennedy, and rightly so. I mean, this is what people of conscience and intellect have been looking for a long time. There was a very exciting candidate here for the Canadian Green Party who was sabotaged by Elizabeth May and business as usual interests, and since then there's really been nothing at all on the whole Canadian horizon that's worth being involved with. So I'm getting involved in your efforts.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here. I actually co-host a news program up in Canada called Maverick News with Rick Walker. We started during the Freedom Convoy last year to oppose the vaccine mandates and the absolutely draconian and Orwellian measures being employed by the Trudeau government during the pandemic. And I know that there are a lot of Canadians up there wishing that Bobby Kennedy could be Prime Minister of Canada too. they would,
Yeah.
they'd love Kennedy to save Canada as well as the United States.
And here's just another little perspective. Like, I was born and raised in Victoria, which is south of the 49th parallel. So where I grew up, it was like about a 270-degree view of the USA, as Vancouver Island sticks into Washington State. So it's been a real close relationship, and living next to the elephant has been interesting to grow up with. And I came into political awareness when Reagan was in Central America.
Mm.
So yeah, it's something to like, this could be so good for the United States international standing in the world and opinion, because, like, well, I mean, I think we're all here for the same reasons, but I'm really with you guys as much as I can be, and I literally will be on the big island of Hawaii quite a bit. So I'm especially interested in what I could do there.
Fantastic. I'm just curious. Are you a citizen of the United States or Canada? Are you able to vote in U.S. elections?
I'm not, no, though I'm looking for maybe there's to quote Bachman Turner Overdrive, an American woman. You never know, but I like Hawaii a lot, I must say, and well, because my dad's down there might be ways of becoming some kind of or having some green card. I don't know what we would call it, but
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I can be down there.
Well, we welcome your help, even if you're not a United States citizen. There's still much that you can do, and I believe that a Kennedy presidency will benefit Canadians
Oh, the
as
world,
well.
the
I
world.
mean, there's
Like,
an old saying, and I'm sure you've heard it up there in Canada. If America gets a cold, Canada gets the flu.
oh,
Whatever we do, unfortunately, will affect you guys if we do the wrong thing. But conversely, when we do the right thing and we have a great leader, that's also good for Canada, and it's good
well,
for everyone.
I was getting at this from an outside perspective. Like, yeah, the U.S. has made a lot of enemies around the world since World War II, with mostly to do with CIA type operations and deterring democracy. Noam Chomsky, unfortunately, has fallen from grace, but
Mm.
yes, like, I'm well aware of what U.S. hegemony has done to the world, and I think everyone needs to do what they can to turn that around.
Absolutely. Did you have anything else you'd like to share before I open the mic to somebody else?
Just if anyone has, I'll be listening to this thing and trying to glean little nuggets of what I can do and how we can work together and stuff like that.
How wonderful to have you on board. Thank you for attending. And the way I usually run these Twitter spaces is as I add speakers in, I'm just going to ask you when you're done speaking to mute your mic so that we don't have people talking all over each other. But I'm going to leave you in as a speaker so that if you have something later that you'd like to add to the conversation, you're already in the conversation. And I'm not going to take you out, just going to ask you to mute your mic while we go to the next speaker. And that would be my good friend Alicia Smith, who had her hand up early on. And I'm going to go ahead and add you in, Alicia. And you should be able to unmute your mic and start speaking. Welcome, my friend. Can you hear me, Alicia? Are you there? You'll have to unmute your mic. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yep, can hear you just fine. Hello, Alicia.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to have you step up and talk to us tonight.
This is the second time I've done this.
That's awesome.
Glad to hear Al's a Canadian. I'm not the only one that's rooting for Bobby.
That's right. Alicia is one of our Maverick News regulars. She's a member of the Maverick News family.
Never miss it.
You're there every night.
Every single night. Yep. So yes, so Bobby's been doing a lot of talking lately. I knew he would.
Boy, he's been saying a mouthful.
He also said that when he was kneeling with his dad, he looked right up at the CIA agent that put the gun right in his dad's side and fired the shot.
Oh, you're talking about the security guard, Thane Eugene Caesar?
Yeah,
Right,
yep,
right.
yep, yep. Is he still alive?
No, he passed away in 2020. Died just a couple of years ago. I believe he was hiding out down in the Philippines, where he'd been living for many years, most likely under CIA protection.
Oh, probably.
And I don't know if you've heard this story, but Bobby Jr. actually tried to reach out to Thane Eugene Caesar to contact him I think it was about 6 months or so before he died. And he had a go between who was sort of trying to facilitate that meeting. Bobby was willing to fly down there to meet with this man, the man who he believes killed his father, but he wanted to talk to him face to face. And Thane Eugene Caesar said he would do it, but he needed $10,000. And Bobby was willing to pay the $10,000 just to have a sit down face to face with the man he thought killed his dad. But then Thane Eugene Caesar decided he wanted $20,000. And that's where Bobby drew the line. He said, hell no. And then it wasn't long after that that Thane Eugene Caesar died. So they never got to meet. I thought that was kind of an interesting story.
It is, but I don't know if Bobby really wanted to meet him again. He said he looked right into the evil eyes of the man when he pulled the trigger. I would find that really hard.
I don't think that's accurate. Bobby was not in Los Angeles the night his father
Yeah,
was
he
killed.
was. He said he was right on the 3-part show. And the second part of the show, Bobby said he was right there hanging on to his dad's his hand. The young the I can't think of his name, but Bobby's brother that died, committed
Chris.
suicide.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, not Chris. David. Yeah,
he was watching it on TV.
right. Yeah, and he
Yeah,
was there in Los Angeles. David was there, and that's a trauma that I don't think David ever fully recovered from for the rest of his life. As you probably know, David died of a drug overdose in
yeah.
1984, and he and Bobby were very close siblings. But I'm not sure which interview you're referring to, but I can tell you for certain that Bobby was not in Los Angeles when the shooting happened at the Ambassador. He was back east in school. Of course, the family flew out there to Los Angeles, and he did get to hold his father's hand by his bedside when he was dying. He, he
Okay.
he got to say goodbye to his father, but of course, his father was essentially brain dead at that point and probably couldn't hear him. But as far as I know, Bobby never met Thane Eugene Caesar, the man he believes killed his dad. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So I don't know. If you can find that interview, though, I'd be really curious if you would send it to me over DM. If you could find a link to that, I would be very curious to hear that. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It's a 3-part show. It I watched it last. I think actually it might have even been last summer that he was on. I'll look and see if I can find it again.
Please do. Yeah, you got me curious now
Yeah, it
what the
was a
story is
3-part
there.
series that he did on an interview, and the second part was he talked all about um, John and his dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Well, it's possible that Caesar may have been a security guard at the hospital because they did have cops and security posted in the hallway and outside of his father's room. It is possible, I suppose, that Caesar was one of those security guards at the hospital. Maybe Bobby would have bumped into him in the hallway, but he was not there when the shots were fired in the Ambassador Hotel kitchen. That much I do know. So that's interesting. You've got me very intrigued, Alicia.
Yeah, because uh, I'm positive, but maybe not. But there is a young lad kneeling down by Bobby. So I don't know. You've got me fooled too, because I thought Bobby said it again not that long ago.
Oh, I know who you're thinking of, and I'm having a I'm having a little bit of a brain fart on his name. He was a young man who was a kitchen worker backstage at the Ambassador Hotel, and I cannot think of his name right now. Someone out there will correct me. I'm sure you know his name. I think he just passed away a year or two ago, and I know his name, but it's just not coming to me right now. He was a
Yeah, I
young
remember
Latino
about a
guy
kitchen.
who was, yeah, he
Yeah.
was working back there in the kitchen, and he was standing right next to Senator Kennedy when he was shot, and he fell to the floor. And one of the interesting things about uh, that those few moments after Senator Kennedy was shot, he turned to Thane Eugene Cesar, the rent-a-cop, the security guard, and grabbed his tie as he was falling to the ground and pulled his tie clip off. And in that famous photograph where you see the kitchen worker kneeling beside Senator Kennedy, and there's
Okay.
the pool of blood on the floor, you'll notice in the photograph, if you look carefully, there is a tie clip on the floor. That tie clip came from the man that Bobby alleges is the real assassin, Thane Eugene Cesar. So as Senator Kennedy was falling, he grabbed the guy's tie. And many of us interpret that as a way of him saying, even though he could not speak, I know you just shot me, as he was falling to the ground. So interesting. Very
That
interesting.
is very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we add the next speaker in?
Nope, that was it. I was just grateful that there was another Canadian that feels just like me.
I love that too. I'm glad to see us recruiting some support from Canada. I know there's a lot of love for Bobby up in Canada, and he
There
loves
is.
Canada too. He's spent a lot of time in his life in Canada. He's got a lot of friends up there. And I'm sure that a Kennedy presidency would be great for Canada too, as well as the United States, because, so
Yeah.
much of Canadian policy, as you well know, is dictated by the American president. And we know that much of the COVID pandemic policies that Trudeau implemented were actually coming from Biden, and the vaccine mandates and all that stuff, and the border dispute there at the Windsor Bridge.
Yep.
That was Biden breathing down Trudeau's neck during the
Yes, it
freedom
was. Yep.
convoy.
Yep.
So it
Yep.
does matter a great deal to Canadians who the American president is, because their policies will probably follow American policies as they usually do.
Well, you knew that John F. planted a tree down in Parliament Hill, eh?
That's right. Yes, he did.
Yep.
He did. And he threw his back out doing that. Did you know that story? That was
Yeah.
in 1961, just before he was about to leave for Vienna for that big summit with Nikita Khrushchev.
Yeah.
And he was in excruciating pain during that entire summit because of that damn tree planting in Ottawa. He was trying to plant the tree, ceremonial, digging with the shovel, and his back was fragile, and he threw his damn back out, and he paid a heavy price for that tree. So I hope that Ottawans really appreciate the sacrifice that President Kennedy made for that tree.
And I'm, to tell you the truth, I'm wondering if the tree's still there.
I do too. Actually, I was going to ask you if that tree that President Kennedy planted in Ottawa is still there.
That's something for me to Google now.
Could you find out and let me know?
Yeah, okay, I will.
Yeah, I'm just a Kennedy historian. Those kinds of things are very interesting to me. Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
okie dokie.
Great to talk to you, Alicia. Stick around, and you can just mute your mic, and I'm going to move on to the next speaker here.
Oh, I look forward to Monday night every night now.
Thank you. So do I. I love these meetings on Monday nights, and
Yep,
I'm
I'm
enjoying them more every week.
Monday night.
Thank you, Alicia.
Okie doke. Talk later.
Thank you, dear.
Yep.
And I'm going to go to Alex. Looks like you're next, Alex. If you want to unmute your mic and go right ahead,
I just want
mister.
to ask first. I know I asked you about this like I don't know if it was like 1 or 2 months ago, but like, is there ever going to be a process for organizations to endorse RFK Jr.?
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
I was wondering if
But
like you had got.
I don't think they've got it together yet.
Oh yeah, and then the other thing is that it's like, will Kennedy ever be campaigning in Northern California or in Reno, California, or in Reno, Nevada?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, California is going to be so important to this campaign, absolutely critical to this campaign. Not only does he have to win California just for history's sake, I mean, he has to win the state that his father won in the primaries, absolutely, but also, it's a very delicate rich state,
Yeah.
and it tends to be a very democratic voting state. So it's absolutely vital that he wins California. He's going to be campaigning really hard out there, and Nevada too. Nevada's also very important.
Of course.
Yeah,
I hope he
I'm
goes.
sure he will be.
No, I know he's in He's actually going to be in San Diego May 27th. But I hope he at
Ah,
some point. I hope he at some point comes to like Sacramento, because that's the state capital, and he really
right.
needs to be there. We've had an awful governor, a Democrat governor named Gavin Newsom. He's
Oh,
screwed
yeah.
everything up. I'm from California. I lived in California all my life, and it would just send a message. Like, it wouldn't even be about Newsom, but like it would send a message if RFK could have a campaign rally in Sacramento, where the capital is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that'd be awesome. And I wanted to ask you something about Newsom since you live there.
Yeah.
I've been hearing these rumors lately, and they just might be true. President Biden is, I think he's kind of looking to ditch Kamala Harris from the ticket. There's been a lot of talk
Uh,
about, getting someone else, and people seem to be pointing in the direction of Gavin Newsom, which would be interesting because Gavin Newsom is kind of one of those, faux Kennedys, I guess. He's got the good looks and the teeth and the smile and the hair, and he pretends that he worships the Kennedys while at the same time denying parole to Sirhan Sirhan, and implementing policies that I think the real Kennedys would frown upon. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, of a Newsom Biden ticket, if you think that's possible or likely.
in all honesty, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I think he's eyeing a 2028 presidential election run.
Me too. Me
And the reason I
too.
think and the other thing is that we all know how unpopular Kamala Harris is, but people don't understand that it's like Kamala Harris isn't there to win someone like us over. Kamala Harris is there to win like the middle class like white PMC types. So Kamala Harris is there to win over those types, and like maybe some like identity politics obsessed Gen Z people, although not even many of them like her. So I think that's like her purpose, and then Biden's purpose is to like bring like suburban moderate Republicans to the Democrats. And like Chuck Schumer famously said in 2016 that like for every working class person we lose to Trump, we will gain two more suburban middle class white Republicans.
True. Very true. I think Kamala Harris has only had one job, only one purpose, being vice president, and the whole reason she was selected in the
Identity.
first place. Well, yes, that, but also impeachment insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
She's
because
she's impeachment insurance because nobody wants Kamala Harris as president. So that's why no one's impeached Biden yet. I truly believe that. She is to President Biden what Dick Cheney was to George Bush. Impeachment insurance.
pretty
The
much.
vice
But not only
president
that,
nobody wanted.
not only that, but like Kamala Harris is basically like the hardline wing of like the Biden administration. She has all Biden's views, but she wants to go like a lot further than Biden does sometimes. And it's like she's a lot and obviously she's bad optics for the country, but it's like if Biden's goal is to win over white suburban Republicans and win over Gen Z identity politics obsessed youth, like that selection of candidates, that's going to win those people over, and they can rig as many elections as they want as long as they have those people supporting them. You will always have those people defending them, even if like they outright rig the election. And we're not. And the thing is that it's like if I just want to ask a question: if Kennedy loses the primary, which he will, be honest, they rigged the primaries.
Mm-hmm.
If they, if because we now know he's not going to run against Trump. No, not run. He's not going to run with Trump, right?
Yeah, he won't run with him.
We
Right.
won't run with Trump. Will he run as an independent or as a third party?
Boy, that's a good question. I'm asking the exact same question. I share those concerns with you. I really, really do. I have
Because the
serious
thing,
questions about him running in the Democratic Party. I think he should run either Republican or independent from the get-go.
well, you should do independent. You know why? It's because one, he can get people from both sides, but two, it's not going to interrupt. Him running independent won't really interrupt Trump's run more than it will interrupt Biden's run. But three, we really need. What I'm kind of disappointed about is that we don't have a strong third party candidate.
Right.
You know, part of the reason why I'm going as hard as I am, part of the reason why I'm supporting RFK as hard as I am, is because we do not have a single third party candidate running right now that's even like semi decent. Like, look at the Green Party right now. Look at there's only one candidate who's announced, and it's Howie Hawkins. And
Not
Howie
again.
Hawkins,
Not again.
I was just, yeah, he's announced. He's already officially announced, and he's the only
boy.
candidate. So unless someone here decides to run against him, he'll probably be the next person. And in all honesty, we all saw last time. I was in the Green Party at that time when all this was happening. We all saw how much of a disaster Howie Hawkins was.
Yes,
Like,
it was.
Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Jill Stein, but like,
oh, I love Jill Stein. She's a great candidate.
There's certain things that just, like, for example, wasn't she for COVID lockdowns?
Sorry, who?
Wasn't Jill Stein for COVID lockdowns?
Gosh, I don't remember.
Because if she was, because I remember her being for it, and that's the problem. But she did support. But the thing is, she did support. Okay, her politics were a lot more anti-imperialist than that of Howie Hawkins, and she actually went hardball in opposing the Democrats and opposing Clinton. I remember Howie Hawkins literally saying in his own presidential race that, hey, we should support Biden against Trump. So, like, why would anyone vote for you? Why would anyone vote for you? Why were you even running? And not to mention that I feel like his whole purpose was to destroy the Green Party, because under his rule, they actually lost ballot access in a lot of places. And obviously part of it is because they wanted to take the Greens off the ballot. But a lot of it was also because the Green Party is pretty much the only national level left-wing electoral party in the country that has ballot access anywhere. Like, the only other one that even exists in the country is Peace and Freedom, and that's California only. And I'm registered Peace and Freedom. But the only reason I'm registered Peace and Freedom as opposed to the Greens is because the Greens are ran by these sort of people. I remember when Jill Stein went to speak for Rage Against the War Machine, how they had like a vote internally over whether she could speak, and it like narrowly passed. And then like a ton of people resigned and tried to destroy the party.
Really?
Yeah, you can look this up.
I didn't know about that.
The vice chair of the the vice chair of the Green Party National resigned because Jill Stein spoke at Rage Against the War Machine.
Holy cow.
And now you have Howie Hawkins is running this thing called, and you can search this up, it's called the Ukraine Socialist Solidarity Campaign. And like, Howie Hawkins is literally he's actually an insane neocon. He literally has the Biden foreign policy, but like under the guise of socialism. And that's why the Green Party must, honestly, I hate to say this, the Green Party has to be destroyed if this is going to be if they're the only left-wing party, electoral third party in the entire country, the Green Party must be destroyed. And like, honestly, I hope the People's Party puts out someone good this year, because
me too.
I like Nick Brana. I like the People's Party. I'm just kind of disappointed they haven't announced anyone for any office yet. But what I will say is that, in all honesty, I think we really need a U.S. Workers' Party or a U.S. Labor Party. Not Labor Party like the British Labor Party, but like an actual Workers' Party.
I see what you mean.
We need an actual U.S. Workers' Party. It cannot be in the Democrats. And I think the biggest obstacle to that is I feel like the trade unions have the resources and have the money to form their own political party. They already have all this money as is. Like, even if they got their funding pulled, they can still fund. And they do fund political campaigns all the time on local levels, just within the Democratic Party.
But it's always right. It's always the Democrats that they get in bed with.
Well, except for the Teamsters, but the Teamsters always support the Republicans, so it doesn't even matter. But the thing is that it's like, if even one union I'm not even talking about the whole AFL-CIO. If even one union were to like pull away from the Democrats and pull away from the AFL-CIO or at least attempt to form their own labor party or workers' party, I think it could actually go somewhere. And we really need a workers' party in this country. And obviously I'm supporting RFK, but like part of the reason why like I said earlier, part of the reason why I'm supporting RFK as much as I am is because there is no third party candidate that's catching my attention right now. I might even just vote Libertarian, considering that like the Libertarian candidate this time isn't too bad. Like look at Mike Termott. You should search him up. He
Right?
actually the Libertarian candidate this time around, one of the main Libertarian candidate this time around actually isn't too bad. So in all honesty, I might probably support the Libertarians this time. Also, Afro Man is running, but I don't know how serious of a campaign it is.
Well, I'm a longtime libertarian, and I'm watching our party very closely to see who we might nominate. Our convention is coming up at the end of this month. Or sorry, I'm thinking a year ahead. It's May of 2024, so we've still got some time yet to see who's going to emerge on the libertarian front. See, I'm so excited about this election. I'm ready to have it this year instead of next year.
I know the Libertarian Party of Delaware is having their state convention this month, and they actually invited the American Student Union, my group, to have a table there. So we're going to be going to it.
Oh, that's
and like,
great, man.
You know who else is going to be there? The founder and creator of Black Guns Matter. You know who he is?
Yeah,
he'll be there too.
That's very cool. And I actually agree with you about the Green Party. I think I used to love the Green Party, but in more recent years, they really have become like controlled opposition, sort of gatekeepers, steering the left back into the Democratic Party every time. Go out and vote for Joe Biden, go vote for the Democrats. What kind of opposition are you if that's what you're telling your people to do?
Exactly. Like, I feel like the whole purpose of the Green Party is to make themselves as unlikable as possible. So then it's like anytime someone from the left, anytime like a Bernie crowd or progressive is like, oh, we must ditch Biden. And then they could just say, oh, look at your alternatives. And it's like, yeah, we might as well vote Biden. Because it's like the Greens ain't that much better on policy. And the thing is that it's like, I think the only future for left-wing third parties is if the People's Party somehow replaces the Greens on the ballot. That's like the only way I could see a left-wing third party get anywhere.
I was going to ask, I'm curious, did you see that piece in Counterpunch this week? Bobby actually tweeted it about, should the left endorse Kennedy? Should they support Kennedy? Did you see that?
I read Counterpunch sometimes, but I haven't read it. This article. It's funny because Counterpunch, they publish good articles, but they also publish bad articles.
Right. I've written for Counterpunch myself.
Yeah, they published a ton of like pro-Ukrainian stuff when the war. Like, do you remember that?
I do. Very unfortunate. Yes, I do.
Not only that, but like there's an article, a really wacky article published in Counterpunch in 2013 that was written by this Holocaust denier. And he defended Pol Pot. It was really weird.
Yes, I remember that. I do.
And like the guy who wrote it was like a really famous neo-Nazi. How did this even get published? And now they're publishing like pro-Ukraine stuff. So
yes, and this article in Counterpunch was interesting because it seems like they're having a moral crisis on the so-called American left. Like, should we support this Kennedy guy? They're just having a meltdown over it, and I'm like, well, who the hell else are you going to support? Joe Biden? I mean, knowing come on.
Well, knowing the left, probably they would. They probably would.
There you go.
Look at all the leftist organizations. We talked about last time we talked about how the CPUSA, they support Biden. They supported Biden last time. They're going to be supporting him this time. They supported the CPUSA. They supported Obama twice. They supported fucking Al Gore. They supported all the Democrats for at least the last 20 or 30 years, possibly longer. And the important thing is that it's like, and yeah, obviously we've talked about the history. The Communist Party at one point wasn't like this. Gus Hall used to run as like an independent candidate. And if we had that Communist Party, maybe you know what's funny? The CPUSA did actually support JFK when he ran. But it's like that was like the only Democrat they supported for president. Actually, no, they also supported the original Robert Kennedy, but they didn't support the actual nominee that came after him.
Hubert Humphrey. Right.
They didn't support, the CPUSA never supported. They, by the way, they did run candidates within the Democratic Party, but they also ran their own candidates. It was more strategic, and it was like it was like their own candidates rather than just supporting who the nominee was. And the thing is that it's like, and also because they were an illegal organization, they kind of had to in the 60s and 50s. But the important thing is that it's like look, you can work within the Democrats or the Republicans, not even as a communist, but just as like even if you're like a libertarian or if you're like a populist in general. I don't think it's necessarily bad to work within the parties at all. I just think you have to have a purpose or goal, and you can't be exclusively bound to one party. Like,
Well, and you can't sell
like
out the interests. I mean, as I understand it,
like
communists are
a real
supposed to be
popular.
the working class
Yeah,
party, and yet
exactly.
they support candidates that continue to sell out the working class time after time after time. And
Exactly.
that's why I don't take them seriously anymore. And they haven't run, the Communist Party hasn't run a candidate since 1984. Gus Hall was the last time they ran anyone for
And Gus
president.
Hall was, and remember Gus Hall and Angela Davis. Remember
Yep.
that Angela Davis back in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
viciously attacked Gus Hall, split the
Yes.
party, made a
Mm-hmm.
huge split of the party. And then when she formed her own group called Communist Correspondence, the DSA, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which if you don't know is like a Maoist group that supports the Democrats, a bunch of Trotskyist groups. You had all these like Latino immigration reform groups. All of them sent greetings to the Congress. I literally posted a tweet about this like a month ago about how Angela Davis is probably FBI.
Yes.
And she probably is. You want to talk about a Fed? Look at Angela. Look at how all the other Panthers are either in jail, dead, or hiding in Cuba or somewhere else in the planet. But like she's like the only major Panther that's like not only still alive, but if you go to her website, you know how much it costs to book her to speak in person?
No, how much?
$80,000.
Wow.
Norman
Wow.
Finkelstein made a joke about this on the Jimmy Dore show 2 weeks ago, and he said like these liberals, it's like these liberals are woke and they like Angela Davis because they think they're so down with the hood, and that they're rubbing shoulders with Angela Davis at Martha's Vineyard. This is the sort of revolution that we're sold, and it's like it's revolution because when I was in Spain back in November. I was literally visiting. I was in Bilbao, so I was in the Basque area, and it's like there's this one cafe that was ran by a social democratic party in Spain. I forget which, not the PSO, but like one of the more pro-independence groups, because the PSO is not pro-independence. But in this cafe, because every political party in Bilbao, the Basque country, has their own cafe / restaurant or bar. That's kind of like people there are more active in politics than they are here. Long story short, but I went inside briefly with my friend because I was going with my friend, and no joke, he had a picture of like Angela Davis, and then he had like the Kurdish flag, like literally like pop leftism. Like you didn't have
Wow.
anything, like you didn't have anything about Cuba, you didn't have anything about nothing about China, nothing about Cuba, nothing about the Soviets. Just you had like Fred Hampton, you had Angela Davis, you had the Kurdish, and you had like a bunch of anarchist stuff. Literally pop leftism.
That's crazy.
And like I'm not dissing Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was based, but
Yeah,
it's like,
Fred was the real deal.
but like the
That's why they
difference
killed
is,
him.
but this is the problem. You have all these fucking white anarchists and like radical liberals. You see, the worst thing that's ever happened as a result of the Black Lives Matter protests is that it's like you have all these liberals who will fetishize like Black Revolution without actually like like they don't act like, for example, like all these liberals who fetishize Fred Hampton, none of them support the Uhuru movement, none of them support Black Hammer, none of them support the African People's Socialist Party, none of them are condemning the raids, none of them want to abolish the FBI. But these are the sort of people who will look at like MLK or like Fred, or if they're more radical liberals, Fred Hampton or whatever, and they're like, and it's like a trend, it's trendy, it's like a brand, it's not actually something they believe in. And the thing is that it's like, how do I put this? Yeah, the thing is that
Great point.
yeah. Oh, I just forgot what I was gonna say, but oh yeah, I remember. So, yeah, my point is that Fred. Look, Fred. My point is that. Okay, just go ahead. I forgot.
That's okay. We'll come back to you. If you
Go
remember,
ahead.
we'll add you back in. I want to go to our next speaker. I'm going to go ahead and add John McCarthy. I think he's had his hand up for a while. So let me add you in, John. And you should be connected. You can unmute your mic and fire away. Hey, John.
Yes, hello?
Are you there, John?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't have anything
Good
really
evening.
profound to say today, but you were talking about how you're banned on Facebook. And I'm not banned, but they put me on restrictions for 3 days. I think I got like 1 day left. And they wouldn't even say why, but I tracked it down. I had reposted a quote by RFK Jr. And that got taken down from my timeline. So I think that was the reason. And the quote was, he said, when I was campaigning to get mercury out of fish, nobody accused me of being anti-fish.
Which is a great quote. I love that
It's a
quote.
great quote, and I like it because it's actually explaining how he is not anti-vaccine. He's just for vaccine safety. But they're interpreting it totally the whole other way. And there's been a whole wave of people who are on my friends list who have all been restricted for 3 days. What it is, they're not letting us repost links, even in Messenger. So I can type anything I want. I can post a picture, a screenshot, whatever. But if I try to link to any article or video, they won't let me do it, and it's because of an RFK Jr. quote, and it's election interference is what it is.
You bet. Yes, it is. And keep in mind, John, that Bobby is involved in litigation right now. He is suing Facebook, Meta, their parent company, as we speak, for censoring him, for censoring Children's Health Defense. They kicked CHD off their platform last year, as well as off Instagram. And so Bobby is currently involved in a big antitrust lawsuit against Facebook, Instagram, Meta, YouTube, Google, the Trusted News Initiative, which includes BBC, CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, all of these organizations that not only censored him, but censored anybody who questioned the narrative,
Is it possible for people to sign on to that lawsuit?
I'm sorry, for some reason, I think your phone's cutting out. I'm having a difficult time understanding you here.
Okay, I'm saying, is it possible for people to sign on to that lawsuit? Like, if we're being censored for supporting him.
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't hear you. Damn. I tell you what, John, maybe if you can get some better cell reception, we can come back to you here in a few minutes. I'm going to add Alex in. I think he might have an answer to your question.
I barely even heard him. I was just going to ask, has RFK Jr. said anything about the Uhuru raids? And if he hasn't, will he ever say anything?
I hope so. I hope he does. I have not heard him address it specifically yet. I would think he's got to be aware of it.
I hope he is, because Tucker Carlson's talked about it. Even Glenn Beck says something. So it's like, I hope he does.
Yes. I hope so too, because it's incredibly important.
Can you hear me yet?
Sounds a little better.
Okay, because I was just going to say, I was actually, Caleb Muffin and myself were both actually panelists on the Hands Off Uhuru Zoom call on Saturday. And they gave me 2 minutes, and that's exactly what I did. I used my 2 minutes to challenge Marianne Williamson and Bobby Jr. to hold a joint press conference to denounce the prosecution of the Uhuru movement.
Oh, that's a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah, they should. And the whole conference call is up on their YouTube channel, Bernie's Fear TV, and you can watch the whole thing. But my part starts at about the 56-minute mark, and that's exactly what I did. And they should do that. They should do that, because she says she's for reparations. You can't be for reparations and the FBI at the same time when the FBI is prosecuting people.
The Megyn Kelly Show. Today, part 2 of our interview with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Alicia, your mic's...
Oh. I'm going to go ahead and mute Alicia's mic. I don't think she was aware that her mic was open. Sorry about that.
Okay, but basically that's what I did, is I challenged the two of them, because Bobby's been very good speaking out for Julian Assange, and then I mentioned Julian's father and brother have said that the two cases are the same, that it's the same fight. So I think they should do that. And aside from that, they should have debates with each other. Doesn't matter that the DNC doesn't want to sponsor them.
Well, I wonder if Marianne Williamson would accept that challenge, because she seems to be, if I understand this correctly, I think she's kind of supporting Ukraine in this conflict.
Oh, she is.
She definitely is.
And not only that, but she's also a two-state solutioner.
Yeah, so it's hard to see her coming out in support of the Uhuru movement because they're so pro-Russia. I think she's afraid to. She should stand up for them just on the grounds of free speech.
Well, Glenn Beck isn't pro-Russia. Glenn Beck isn't pro-Russia. Sorry.
Yeah, she should be confronted on it, forced to make a choice. And
I agree.
I don't think she would make the right choice. I think Bobby would if he was confronted with it. I don't think she would, but that's exactly why she should be confronted, because it'll expose her for what she is or what she isn't.
That's right. And the truly principled position to take on this indictment by the DOJ against Uhuru, regardless of whether you support Russia or Ukraine, it's a First Amendment issue. It affects the rights of all Americans. And, if you support Russia, you should have the right to support Russia and speak freely in this country. And people who support Ukraine should stand in solidarity with other Americans for their First Amendment rights not to be jeopardized. So I think that Bobby's a stickler for the First Amendment, and he's trying to remain neutral in this conflict and not support either side. He's trying to be a diplomat. He's trying to be kind to both sides, because obviously you can't negotiate any kind of lasting peace without some sensitivity to both sides. But still, when it comes down to the First Amendment, that is absolute. And what the DOJ is doing with this Uhuru indictment is frightening, and it should scare all of us. That could be anybody on any issue at any reason at any time. That could be any of us in handcuffs. That could be any of us facing 8 years in prison for merely expressing ourselves. So, John, because your cell connection just isn't very good tonight, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next speaker, and hopefully they'll have a good cell phone connection.
Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and go.
That's right. I'm basically done.
Okay, cool. Hang in there. I'm going to go to, I think this is Natasha. Let me add Bobby Bros to the conversation. This is Natasha, right? Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Are you there?
Good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
I was just kind of excited about Bobby's tweet about putting activists in government roles. I think that's probably to scare a lot of people. But I mean, I think if we can get a lot of these old school lefties to kind of get out of their pharmaceutical haze and channel their old revolutionary aspect and fire that back up, they can,
wasn't that was refreshing. I really liked that tweet. It's a great idea, and it's so out of the box.
Yeah, I mean, that's the type of thinking. That's why we're supporting him. I mean,
that's right. I thought that was awesome. What else is on your mind tonight, Natasha?
Well, we were kind of talking about a lot of the MAGA people have already kind of defected in the sense from Trump with his money from the companies and the pharma companies and all that stuff. But I think we can still get a lot of those people. Won't be the hardest to convince. I think a lot of the people on the left are going to be the harder sell, because they're really in an echo chamber, I think.
Right. And they're so heavily propagandized too. It's ironic that he's running in the Democratic Party, and yet it seems like the most resistance that he's running into is coming from the left and from Democrats, while at the same time, people on the right, especially in the MAGA circles, just love Bobby. They're welcoming him with open arms. You can compare the press coverage that he gets from right-wing media compared to mainstream left-wing media and the so-called dissident left media. They're the ones who hate him. And over on the right, the folks on the right, the Republicans, are giving him fair press. They're giving him good coverage. They're asking him all the right questions, and they're treating him with the due respect that he deserves as a presidential candidate, while all of the media on the left is fighting him tooth and nail. And when they can't fight him because they don't have an argument that they can even rebut his arguments with, then they just try to ignore him. They're just trying to pretend he doesn't exist. They're taking the Joe Biden White House Democratic Party approach of just saying, oh, let's just pretend he isn't there, even though his poll numbers at this point are impossible for them to ignore. And yet, there you go. That's where the resistance to Bobby is within his own party. That's where he's got his work really cut out for him.
I did want to mention something about that too. Everybody was kind of talking about he's running as a Democrat, and that's such a bad choice, and this and that. And I feel like we might be overlooking the bigger picture. That what does he do, right? RFK Jr. He's known for like going in and attacking the monster, and this is the biggest monster is
right.
the DNC. So he's gonna try to go head in and be cut his way out of the belly of the beast. And I think that if he can accomplish that, he's really doing something amazing that's going to change America, because a lot of these MAGA people, are just classical liberals, and they really probably didn't vote for a Republican before Trump. But then once they voted for Trump, they didn't feel like they were going to vote for a Democrat again ever. So, there's a political horseshoe, an arc occurring that I don't think we've previously seen. And I think that, you might even be able to get some of these super delegates, to, do the right thing if the populist groundswell is big enough, and, we can convince these people that, hey, this is the real deal. This is, Biden is not a serious candidate. Nobody's going to take him seriously,
You would think, I would think if I were a delegate to the convention, depending on how the primaries go, I mean, if he brings enough delegates to the convention, if he brings enough votes to the convention, you would think that the superdelegates would do the right thing. But this is the Democratic Party we're talking about, guys. We really don't have any guarantees what those superdelegates are going to do. In his interview with Russell Brand this week, in the first 5 minutes, if you guys have watched that, Bobby demonstrates that he understands how this thing's going to play out. He himself said Joe Biden's going to have 100% of the superdelegates, and that's the ball game, which for me personally leaves me asking the question, so why are you running in the Democratic Party at all? Because you know how this whole thing's going to pan out when we get to the convention. Maybe he's hoping for a miracle. Maybe and we're going to need one. Maybe he's got a super secret strategy up his sleeve. Maybe he's playing what Trump supporters call 5D chess. And he knows something that we don't know yet about how the Democratic Party functions. But, most of us who watched what happened with Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020, and older folks like me who remember the 1980 contest when his Uncle Ted challenged President Carter, very similar to what we have now. Carter was deeply unpopular. Inflation was out of control. We were, we weren't involved in a war, but we had the war in Afghanistan going over there. And of course, the Iran hostage crisis. Kennedy challenged Carter from the left, and we all saw how that worked out. A lot of older Democrats remember our heartbreak at the 1980 Democratic National Convention. I fear that we will see that unfortunately play out again. And I hope I'm wrong. I really want to be wrong about that. No one wants to see the Democratic Party reformed and cleaned up more than I do. I'm a Kennedy Democrat. I've been a Kennedy Democrat since I was a child. And I supported Ted Kennedy when I was 11 years old. I campaigned for him in 1980, going door to door. That's how much of a Kennedy Democrat I am. I personally left the Democratic Party 27 years ago I thought the Clintons and their ilk ruined the Democratic Party and all of those Kennedy Democrat values that I hold dear. And I would love to see this party reformed. I'm just not so sure that it can be reformed. I'm not so sure that that's going to happen, but I hope it does. And I'm going to go ahead and add Ronwell to the conversation. Let me add you in, Ronwell. I see you're a Ron Paul fan too. Ron Paul was my representative from the 14th District of Texas, and he served me very, very well for his 6 terms in Congress. And of course, I voted for him twice for president. So, really nice to have you here, Ronwell. Welcome to the conversation. You can unmute your mic and go right ahead.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
It's fun on the honest. I was a bagger for my grocery store that I worked as a bagger. I was inspired by Ron Paul to become a libertarian, and but this my third party, which is a libertarian party, has been like unfortunately involved in like a caucus drama and so something that and I was a member of the Libertarian Party of Illinois' convention committee. When I first joined the Libertarian Party, I feel like there should be the spirit of liberty, but when I saw the Eternals of the Libertarian Party, I feel like that's like a caucus drama, and so I feel like I'm not there for drama. I'm not there.
I know how you feel. I do.
And also for the Green Party, I actually don't like Howie Hawkins.
Nobody does.
Yeah. And I was actually supporter of Jesse Ventura and City McKinney for the Green Party nomination in 2020. Back then, because I feel like they would have won the presidency with City McKinney, of course. In my opinion, at the last election, because I feel like the people would get behind Trump and Jesse Ventura over Trump and Biden the last election, but they unfortunately rigged it. So the Green Party's hider cigars. I was supporting Tulsi at the primary at the primary, like the last election, and I even vote her in along with some kid at the DNC convention or some from like because of it. So and I don't know about this, but I actually supported Trump in 2016 until like April 2017, to be honest, following the Syria airstrike, and I was like, I'm out. I'm on this one.
Yep.
So,
Can I respond to this?
Yeah, I was out from a Trump train when they bombed Syria, and also he failed to pardon Julian Assange. Like, what the heck?
Worse, he had Julian Assange arrested.
I actually want to bring this up. The president of Mexico. Wait, there's echo. Oh, so the president of Mexico, AMLO, during like the last week or two, I forget if it was like the last month or last week of his presidency, but during the last, it was the last month. During the last month of Trump's presidency in 2020, AMLO actually called Trump on the phone to see, hey, you're on your way out. You may as well pardon Assange. And Trump did not pick up the phone. I remember that as it happened.
Yes.
AMLO, literally the president of Mexico, the nation. It's not like the president of some African country. It's the president of Mexico, the country you've been talking about for the last I don't know how many years. The country you literally got elected on building a wall on the Mexican border. And I understand that, but you're supposed to be in communication with him, probably more than any other president for that matter.
And he was, right? Remember, Trump negotiated that trade deal with
exactly.
Mexico
Like he was able to do that because of his contact with AMLO and also Trudeau, but mainly AMLO. And the important thing is that AMLO tried to get Assange pardoned. Trump did not pick up the phone. And then he had this fucking gay whale. Alex Jones calls him a gay whale. Sebastian Gorka, who, by the way, blocked Haas when Haas challenged him to a debate. And he blocked me too. But there's this gay whale named Sebastian Gorka, who who basically, he made this video. It was a really weird video, like 2 months ago, about Julian Assange. And he was saying, like, trust me, I know about the deep state. And he's like a British guy, so he's LARPing, but LARPing is an American. He's like, trust me, I know about the deep state. I see what the deep state does. But let me tell you why you should oppose Assange and support the deep state's campaign to extradite him and murder him. It's like, he was literally saying, I oppose the deep state, but let me tell you why you should support the deep state. Killing Julian Assange. He was literally saying Assange was a traitor right after he said, I oppose the deep state. Like, this is, like, if there's a psyop, like, if there's, like, you cannot name a better psyop than Sebastian Gorka. He is literally fooled, and he still fools so many people within the MAGA movement. I'm glad Alex Jones called him a gay whale, because at least the more hardcore people won't listen to that guy. And the thing is that, I don't know, because it's like, I feel like when we're talking about the DeSantis deception within the MAGA movement, I feel like the DeSantis deception was able to happen in the first place because you have all these fucking, like, red pill YouTubers and you have all these fucking, like, cultural commentators and influencers. And that's really the base of the DeSantis deception, because they're trying to make MAGA about, like, these cultural issues that don't really matter, as opposed to, like, getting big government off of our backs, right?
Exactly.
Trump is, and I feel like Trump, the only thing that will propel Trump to victory is, and I think he understands this, which is why for the past 3 months he's been getting better. But Trump is now promising, hey, we're gonna do truth. Like last week he said, Truth and Reconciliation Committee for the FBI. Trump literally wants to prosecute the FBI. And you know how, like, after the end of apartheid in South Africa, they had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Yes. He wants to do that with the FBI in this country. So it's like, and I hope RFK proposes something for not just the CIA, not just the FBI, but also the CIA, NSA, and every agency that we have. Every agency. And my point, what I just want to say is, as far as the Tulsi question is concerned, I'm from a group, right? I'm from a group called the Party of Communist USA. We're not the CPUSA. You saw that show. I think, like, the People's Party had like a Rage Against the War Machine panel on the issue of China. You remember that, Lori?
I do. Yeah.
So Christopher Halali, who's one of our people, he spoke at that thing. He was one of the panelists. So that's the group we're from. We actually ran him in 2020 for Senate, and he got 2% of the vote. This is the first. We only ran him on a budget of $400. Yet through the whole state of Vermont, which we were running him for the Vermont National Senate, he got 2% of the vote. So many people supported us, even though we're a tiny party. And we somehow got on the ballot, despite having literally never ran in any election before. And we even got the endorsement of the Vermont Liberty Union Party and the Vermont Progressive Party, which are the two left-wing third parties in Vermont on the ballot. And the important thing is that right afterwards, they attacked us. It's a separate story, but right afterwards, they accused us of sexual assault and they tried to destroy the party. And that's a different thing about Me Too and all that. But beyond the point, that's besides the point. We actually supported Tulsi Gabbard in 2020. And we were the only communist group or only leftist group in America to support Tulsi Gabbard over Bernie. And I'll tell you why. It's because we said that even though the issue of Medicare for all is important, the issue of, like, taking troops out of Syria was way more important for us at the time than Medicare for all. And yes, it alienated us from a lot of people at the time, but in hindsight, we were correct. Because at the end of the day, Tulsi supported Rage Against the War Machine. Tulsi actually left the Democrat. Tulsi actually did do Dem exit.
That's right.
Bernie didn't do that. Tulsi was the only one of any of those candidates to actually do, like, a real Dem exit. So if we're going to be talking about, like, obviously at the time, I actually was confused as to why we did it. But in all honesty, Tulsi Gabbard's always been consistent in being anti-war. Bernie hasn't even been consistent on Medicare for all. And that's like literally the reason that people supported him. And the thing is that in 2016, we did support Sanders, but like only critically. Remember, for us, the Sanders movement was about reaching the people who supported Sanders. It's the same thing with the Trump movement. And it's going to be the same thing with Kennedy. It's going to be the same thing with any other populist candidate that runs. Even if they end up being told, like, I made a tweet like a month ago on RFK, and I said, if RFK ever does sell out, don't be surprised. I'm telling this to everyone here. Don't be surprised if he does sell out. I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying if he does, don't be surprised. Because the point of engaging in RFK's campaign is not like whether he wins or not even, but it's about being able to reach the people who support his campaign and being able to say, hey, if this fails, do you see a future outside the Democratic Party? Can we do a Dem exit? Can we do a People's Party or a Workers' Party? Can we do something outside of the Democratic Party? Can we have an anti-hegemonic popular front?
Well, unfortunately, I don't want to say that Bobby would sell out necessarily, but if you run inside the Democratic Party, it is an absolute fact and a reality that you're required to sign a loyalty pledge. And at the end of the campaign, after the convention, you must endorse the nominee of the party. And if that nominee is Joe Biden, it's going to disappoint a lot of Kennedy's supporters, just as Bernie's supporters were ultimately disappointed in him twice in 2016 and 2020. It would break my heart to see that happen, but it's a reality that we have to brace ourselves for if he stays in the Democratic Party.
Isn't it funny how Tulsi, out of all these different candidates, Tulsi was the only one that actually did any real Dem exit. None of the others, not Bernie, not, what's his name? Not Bernie, not Pete, not Elizabeth Warren, none of them. Well,
That's
obviously
right.
we don't expect them to, but not even like Mike Gravel. Did Mike Gravel do a Dem exit? I don't even think he did a Dem exit. And he's supposedly good on foreign policy. But Tulsi was the only one that actually did so. And I think look, I get it. RFK has to sign a loyalty pledge. I get it if he supports Biden during I get if he has to say he endorses the nominee or whatever. But at the very least, can't you just leave the Democratic Party even if he has to do the loyalty pledge or whatever, right afterwards, like Tulsi did?
He could, but during the election campaign, if you're talking about him leaving after the convention in August, that's getting really close to the election. By that time, it will be too late for him to get ballot access in all 50 states if he ran as an independent. By that time, it'll be too late to run with the Green Party or the Libertarian Party because their nominating conventions are in the spring. They would have already selected their nominees.
Yeah.
And it would be too late for him to run with the Republicans because their nominating convention is in July, 1 month before the Democrats. So they would have already selected their nominee. So if he waits until after the convention to leave the Democratic Party, unfortunately, there's no path to the White House.
He's not going to have any time to do anything, but I understand.
Right.
Look, you know I'm saying this, right? Because I don't want to see all this energy go towards RFK and it all become dead energy, just like the Bernie campaign, or just like any, Bernie campaign, or even just like any campaign within the Democrats beforehand, for that matter. That's right. I hope everyone here. I don't think it's a waste of time to participate in RFK. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think we're wasting our time if we're not working with the RFK campaign. But we have to have very clear goals as to what we're doing here. We have to be fully mentally prepared. If and when, and it's at this point, it's when that day does come, how do we address this? And how do we explain to all of RFK supporters that this is going to happen? And because we want, it's not just about us being mentally prepared. It's about all of his supporters being mentally prepared. That, if he gets cheated, we're not going to vote for the Democrats afterwards. We're not going to go along with it. We're not going to become nihilistic like all the Bernie people did in 2020 or 2016. And we really have to push for a Dem exit. We have to go hard, push for a Dem exit the moment he sells out or the moment he endorses the nominee. We really have to, because if we don't, one, Biden could win. Well, it's either Biden or Trump at this. And in all honesty, I'd rather Trump win the election. So even if even if like Dem exit spoils the even if all it does is spoil the election for Biden, good, because we kind of need to get him out of office anyways. I'm not like I'm not like fully into the MAGA communism thing, but it's like I think there is some sort of truth to it, and the truth
Yeah, I
is
get
that
where
it's
it's
like,
coming
and
from.
the truth to it is that it's like MAGA actually has a populist message that Biden and the Democrats don't. And in all honesty, I feel like, at least from the perspective of an anti-hegemonic coalition, unite with the Trump people, unite with the RFK people, and like those are like probably the only two campaigns in the two parties right now that have any sort of interest in an anti-hegemonic coalition. All the others are not worth addressing.
Great points. And I tell you what, I'm going to. We've got one more person who's got their hand up, and this gentleman's been waiting quite a while. I wanted to thank you for your patience, Colin Redmond. I'm going to go ahead and add you as a speaker. You'll probably be our last speaker of the evening. So you can go ahead and unmute your mic, Colin, and take the floor. Good evening.
Good evening. I just joined here. I come from I voted for Trump twice, but I'm somebody who's always respected the Kennedy presidency and the Kennedys in general. The thing that attracts me to Bobby Kennedy is obviously his hesitancy on the big pharma and the CDC and all of the three, abbreviated government agencies. But the thing that I think that RFK could do is bring back more of the blue collar FDR coalition.
Right.
And because a lot of the blue collar voters went to Reagan and they never went back to the Democratic Party. My whole family is former Democrat, union workers, police officers, construction workers, so on and so forth. But they went for Reagan because Reagan typified a optimistic, patriotic vision for the country that Jimmy Carter was a Debbie Downer. And even though I think in some ways that Reagan policies negatively affected those voters, mainly with trade policy and then later with the neocon foreign policy, I personally don't believe Reagan was a neocon. I think he was in some ways, but all that's to say is RFK could bring some of those blue collar type voters back into a populist agenda. So we don't know what's going to happen in the Republican primary. Right now it looks like DeSantis is surging again. Who knows what's going to happen there, but I just wanted to say that RFK could, in effect, pull some people in to vote for him that are outside the Democratic circles. The problem is the Democratic primary that he has to get through, which I just don't know if he can.
All excellent points.
Actually, the Trump did it in like 2016 or something like that, and so maybe RFK Jr. can do the same thing as like Trump did in 2016, and I mean the DNC said the diversity, equity, inclusion should be a priority, right? Well, I'm Filipino Asian, and I might want to become a district level delegate for RFK Jr. And that was my goal for next year. So there goes that.
I love it. That's great. Really good points, Colin. I love to hear that.
If I was elected as a district level delegate, I'm going to have a kid who I'm a big fan of congratulate me for sure. So yeah.
Colin, did you have any other points you wanted to make before I've got one more speaker after you. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I just wanted to put that out there that I think that there's a lot of conservative voters who would vote for RFK if he were to make it. I don't know if I'm new to this. I don't know what's been said before, but just speaking as somebody who voted for Trump twice and has a history of voting for the GOP, I could see myself voting for RFK Jr.
That's fascinating. Do you mind if I ask you, because I already see a lot of that happening. I see some very prominent former MAGA Republicans sort of defecting to the Kennedy camp, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So I was curious to ask you, since you're a two-time Trump voter, if Trump is the GOP nominee in 2024 and Kennedy was a Democratic Party nominee, who would you vote for?
RFK, yeah.
All the way.
Same. Of course, I voted for Trump both times too.
Yeah.
But I mean, the second time it was kind of half-hearted. It was like, okay, well, this is what we got.
I was never a big Trump person. In 2016, I actually lived in Oregon at the time, and Oregon's so late in the primary process. Trump had basically got the nomination, so all that's to say is I kind of plugged my nose and voted for Trump twice. Even though I ideologically agree with his anti-interventionist foreign policy, putting American populist concerns, first. I agree with that reaction that he has, but he's so inarticulate and off the cuff and big mouthed that's what turns me off about him. So
sometimes he's his own worst enemy, isn't he?
Well, I mean, I voted for him initially and supported him. I always liked Trump in the 80s because of his business acumen, but his political acumen is not equal to that. I'll just put it that way.
Very diplomatic of you. Fascinating. Thank you so much for your input, Colin. I hope you'll join us in these meetings regularly. You're a great addition to the group.
There was one other person that wanted to speak.
I see quick. You. Anthony, right? Let me go ahead and add Anthony in here.
The Chicago.
Want to make sure that you get a chance to speak your mind as well. So you should be able to unmute your mic and join the conversation. Good evening, Anthony.
Nice to talk with you.
Hello.
In terms of what the last person was saying in labor unions, I thought it was interesting. I took notice that the IBEW, they endorsed Biden the day he announced or the day after. And that's
the unions have been held hostage by the Democrats for many, many decades.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the UAW said they're trying to get some kind of another tax credit on electric vehicles out of him before they endorse the UAW Biden.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, but
right.
I just joined a union. I don't want to say which one, but it's a big one. It's got 200,000 plus members, and I'm a brand new, but I emailed the national president and I said you should tell the DNC to have debates. I don't know if he read it, but see if that worked.
I hope so.
Well, if he read it, he didn't like it. So, but no, it's funny because at the very beginning of this conversation, I was talking about a Labor Party. It's funny because back in 1996, there was a guy named Tony Mazzocchi, and he's trying to form a thing called the U.S. Labor Party. Lori, you might remember, you might not.
Yes, that rings a bell. Yeah. Yes,
but there was a thing, and it actually could have gone. It actually ran candidates. It just flopped for whatever reason. It was called the U.S. Labor Party, and for like a year or two, it actually looked like it would go somewhere. And it literally had all these different unions were involved in it. You literally had the San Francisco Labor Council support it. You had all these different socialist groupings for a part of it. But what happened was that then when it finally came time to run a candidate, right? All those unions endorsed the Democrat opposition to the Labor candidate, including the unions that supported the Labor Party initially.
The problem with the third parties and the other thing is it's kind of like in my opinion, the Dem exit and all, it's well-meaning, but politically it's kind of like white flight, where you're like, okay, we saw something kind of going slightly bad, so now we're all going to leave, and now the whole thing goes bad, and this leaves this whole void of anything good. And it becomes this bigger monster the more and more people just go, oh, well, we'll just leave it to these terrible people. And then it becomes this union of terrible people.
Well, in all honesty, it's like, it's not our party, never was our party. And now that you have like Trump in charge of the Republican Party, the Democrats want to make absolute sure that they have like a forever grip on it. And in all honesty, I think a Dem exit, like I think Kennedy may be the RFK may be the last chance the Democrats ever get of ever going back to like any sort of sane or normal policy. After RFK, I don't think there is a redemption for the Democrats. I think they're going to go all in on the wokeness, all in on the imperialism, all in on the oligarchy, all in on big pharma, and that they're going to completely crush anyone who even tries to oppose it. You have Democrats at local levels who do have good policies. Like you have Jeff Young in Kentucky. He's like a Democrat. And he opposed vaccine. And I know him personally. I helped him get on the Jimmy Dore show the one time he got on. But
he's one of the good guys.
Yeah, he's one of the good. But like he, by the way, he's one of the few Democrats supporting RFK at all. But Dennis Kucinich, RFK Jr., Jeff Young, that's it as far as like good Democrats goes. And there might be some city council people, but that's like so insignificant that we can't even bring it. Like as far as national level politicians go, or even statewide politicians, those are the only three I can even think of. And the reason I'm saying this is because all those anti-war Democrats that were like supporting Al Gore in 2004 because they were mad at Bush for invading Iraq, they're all Trump Republicans now. Like people don't even understand. Like even during the Bernie campaign, there's a real thing in political science called the Bernie to Trump pipeline, where in all the districts that Clinton needed to win in 2016 for the swing states in the Midwest, a lot of Midwestern workers who typically voted Democrat and who were previously solidly blue districts had flipped red because those people had supported Sanders, became disappointed with Hillary, so much so that they actually voted for Trump that time.
That's right. And I'm going to go back to Anthony. I see he's got his hand up here. I'm going to let you finish your thought, Anthony.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm here in Michigan, and statewide, yeah, they're all terrible politicians. Actually, Whitmer is the co-chair of Biden's campaign, and she's pissed that she wasn't picked as VP. That's always in play. But they're trying to move the primary up from March to February, so it would be potentially 5th, right after New Hampshire. I don't know when New Hampshire, but the DNC is being tricky. And Bernie won.
Yes, they are.
Bernie won Michigan by 1 point something percent in 2016, though. But then 2020 he tanked here.
Do you see another request in there? Because I had somebody saying that they were trying to speak and it wasn't showing up or something. The Chicagoans for Kennedy?
No, I don't. If they're still here, it's not too late to put your hand up. I'll go ahead and add you. But I don't see them. I don't see anybody with their hand up right now.
Oh, weird. Okay, sorry.
That was strange.
Hey, I got my hand up here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Let's see here. Now I see you. Jay.
Okay. No, it's Hal. I have a comment to some points earlier about how like the traditional leftists have now become morphed into what is looking like cultivated zombies. And that's a phenomenon not just in USA but in Canada too. And like I'm a super progressive activist guy, and with COVID I lost my whole community because they became pharma zombies. Right? Like pretty much all of them. And so now what I see is the Achilles heel of all these people, including Trudeau and in my province, BC, the public health officer, the premier, Jagmeet Singh doesn't like Biden. And like all these politicians have staked their fortunes and their careers and reputations to these mRNAs being safe and effective. And they're freaking out because it's coming out. So the more we can do to to bring that narrative down, the better it will be for everyone around the world who's dealing with this shit. Because it came from Pfizer, it came from Wuhan, whatever. It came from the USA, right? So, but it's infected my country here, and they are all vulnerable with this. There's like hours of footage clips of them saying safe and effective, and shaming and calling us Nazis that resisted the mandates and measures. Nazis, racist, white supremacists. They were calling us Confederates. Canada has no Confederate tradition at all. So this is my big interest is if we can, and it seems like a real tipping point where they can't stop the harms of what's happened. And so those people that have staked themselves to that are in trouble. And we're talking like international criminal court kind of trouble. That's what I'm pushing now for people in Canada that pushed the experimental vaccine for which the trial data was withheld and that kind of stuff, right? Like this is crimes against humanity. That's where I'm at. Okay. And
I
so
couldn't
that will
agree
help.
more with that.
That will help RFK. It will help. Well, like there's nobody in the Canadian political landscape even positioned to anywhere that I know of. But so RFK is my big hope for cleaning stuff up in Canada. And that, as I see, is their Achilles heel, is this mandates and measures bullshit that has caused so much damage and death around the world. So that's my big point.
An interesting thing I was going to add to that, it's just kind of an aside, but the Kennedys and the Trudeaus have a long friendship, right? Going back to Pierre Trudeau back in the 70s, Margaret Trudeau. I don't know what kind of relationship Bobby has with Justin Trudeau, if any. But I know that Bobby greatly, greatly opposed Trudeau's policies during the pandemic. That's for sure.
Trudeau Sr. had intelligence, and he had style, he had panache.
Right.
Junior is a piece of garbage, right?
That's putting it nicely.
I mean, like, okay, professionally he was a drama teacher, and he's done pretty good at acting, but we know he's a two-faced hypocrite liar, and like it's
and a tyrant.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys, how much you followed the so-called convoy, but after he called us Nazis, racists, a fringe minority with unacceptable views.
Oh, yes.
Confederates. Like, there's no Confederates in Canada. Like, right. And
I remember it well. We covered it live every single day on Maverick News from day one. We covered the Freedom Convoy.
They declared martial law, and then they froze bank accounts and put people in jail and all that to stop it. And then a month later, Trudeau praised the unprecedented protests in China against the lockdowns there, which I think was probably the biggest protest China's ever seen, which were also successful. So anyways, that's my angle of attack on Trudeau and people in my province and all these other players is the vaccine truth, right? Like they pushed an experimental product for which the trial and safety data was withheld and called it safe and effective. That is, look it up, go and look at the Nuremberg Code. It's a violation of the Nuremberg Code.
That's right.
Okay. So,
That's right.
And that's these woke zombies. I believe they've been created probably by the Pentagon and like they've got those Bush era war criminals in CNN and all that stuff that are shaping the narrative to make these zombies is the best way. Like my sister is a super, like, she's always trying to do the right thing, and like I've laid it down to her and I've told her there's families that are still separated 73 years after the fall of the Third Reich for what they supported. Like, get it through your fucking head. This is what, if you guys can look on my Twitter there, and the mandates coming down in my province read like the prelude to Night of the Long Knives. Like, they've totally taken over control of the health system and ordering doctors to get mandated, and they must. Anyways, it's bad. This is fascism.
It's crazy. I know. It's like the Third Reich up there in Canada.
Yeah,
truly.
So Kennedy's my big hope.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that what's good for America will be good for Canada, and what's bad for America will be bad for Canada. We truly are brothers and sisters with a border between us, but we really are very much the same, Americans and Canadians, and we want the same things. We want freedom, and I believe that Bobby Kennedy will benefit Canada also, and I
The
know a lot
world.
of Canadians agree with me.
He'll benefit the world. Like he's taking
Absolutely.
on the global swamp is what he's doing, and like he's got a lot of guts. He's not afraid to die. He says there's things worse than death. So, and I get this feeling it would be like when Darth Vader cuts down Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like he'll become more powerful if that happens because of the movement that he's lit, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what so many people don't understand. Some of you know I was trying to draft Kennedy. I was involved in a draft Kennedy campaign 15 years ago.
Wow.
Back in 2007, 2008, after 8 years of Bush, I felt that Bobby was the only man who could save America even then. Now, of course, that was not the right time. He still had young children at home. He wanted to be there as a father. And that's understandable because he came from a family of 11 children who lost their father. They grew up without a father, and it affected their family in some really bad ways. So he didn't want to abandon his children before they were grown.
Okay,
And
now
that
this
was
looks like a perfect storm has arisen. It's like the time and place, and especially to do with Kennedy's tireless work with that the children's health defense. I'll shoot into. I saw Kennedy. He came to an area on Vancouver Island called Clyquet Sound in I think 1991. It was a pivotal protest to save this amazing little bit of forest and amazing spot. Kennedy was there. He helped save that bit in 91 or 2. And yeah, he's got a long string of successes, and the whole Riverkeeper thing. And then when he got on vaccine, Big Pharma was up against him. But yeah, he's a man of intelligence and integrity, and there's not one Trump in debate with Kennedy and Biden. Forget it.
That's
But
right.
yeah, he's a big hope for the world. Really, is how, like, as somebody who's studied U.S. hegemonies post World War II since I was a teen. Okay, like I got a lot of dirt, but I want to see it get better. And I know it wasn't you guys; it was the government that was out of control. It was the CIA and this black ops stuff. But I'm not going to bore you with the list of countries that have been impacted. So yeah, Kennedy's a huge hope for the world, and he can totally help the world out. And that's why I'm going to try to do all I can. I'll try to figure out what I can do in Hawaii when I get there in a couple weeks.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry to interrupt. Just a programming note. I see that the group Chicagoans for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are desperately trying to speak at this meeting, and they're having some difficulty trying to figure out how to request to speak. And if they can hear me speaking, I'm just going to tell you guys, if you are listening on a computer, unfortunately, Twitter Spaces doesn't work with a computer. You can listen, but you can't speak on a PC. You have to be on a phone. It's just the way the app works. I'm sorry. I hope that Twitter fixes that. It's just kind of a bug right now. So it's possible they say that they are unable to see the request button. And that's probably, I'm guessing, because you're on a computer and not on a phone. So if that's the case, try to join us next Monday night on your phone so that you can speak. I'm sorry that you didn't get a chance to speak this week. But right now, we've got one more speaker we want to go to before we wrap up, and that is Jay Scott. Let me go ahead and add you, Jay. I think you're added. You can just unmute your mic and go for it. Hey, Jay.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for putting on this space again and for giving me some time to speak. And I am actually really glad, I had a chance to go after Hal because he just touched on some really important points. And I just saw a clip from the Netherlands earlier today of their premier actually their president on the hot seat for having a relationship with Klaus Schwab. So what we're seeing all over the world right now is tremendous pushback, against the vaccines. And I think the establishment actually, even well, I'm going to get a little conspiratorial because I feel like, a lot of people here are probably on the same page, but I feel like they introduced, the pandemic with the intention to seize more power, but actually the opposite effect will likely happen because they've destroyed all their credibility. And I think they believed that they'd be able to control the narrative a little bit better. But a lot of people who, used to like call me crazy and, like tell me I'm endangering people by speaking out, a lot of them have completely changed their tune now. And I've had several people actually come to me, telling me they regret it. And we're just seeing an overall change, in the vibe right now. And I think um, Kennedy is perfectly positioned to lead the way, like everyone here believes, because of the fact that he was speaking the truth, or calling attention to vaccine safety long before COVID even happened. So,
Exactly.
exactly. So it's not something new to him. And yeah, I think we're seeing the same thing all over the world. So I am actually more and more positive, as time goes on, even though, the rhetoric can get kind of heated, depending on who you're talking to. And funny story, in the last week, I've actually been called both a Nazi and woke. And I happen to be, yeah, and I happen to be a half Jamaican Ashkenazi Jew. And people, yeah, and people call me, depending on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to someone on the right and I happen to disagree with them, they call me, woke. And if I'm talking to someone on the left and I happen to disagree with them, then they call me a Nazi or a white supremacist. And
Of
like,
course.
yeah, so it's like the insults don't even hold water anymore. And it is very refreshing to see that there are people who are just trying to get to the actual issues and get around the language. And I was actually a little bit late for this podcast because I was listening to your show with Caleb and Tyler,
Great.
Lori. Yeah, and
Thanks.
it's a complete 180 from the rhetoric you're seeing on mainstream media. As a libertarian, have started a show with a communist in order to show people that it's possible to find common ground. And to be honest with you, I was learning a lot from the show. I think it's great. If anyone hasn't checked it out, her show, I'd highly recommend it. I think it's important that we continue to build a space that's more inclusive and doesn't care about what you did before, because I think that's the biggest problem with both parties. They all want to know, how long have you been loyal to us, and will you pledge your undying loyalty to us no matter what we throw at you? And that's not the way parties are supposed to work. People should be loyal to ideas and then force the hands of the politicians to implement the ideas that we want. But instead, we have this like celebrity worship society where everyone picks their favorite politician and then rides with them till the end, even if they abandoned all the things that they said they were going to fight for during
Right.
the campaign. So it's real frustrating.
Boy, you said it. Well said, my man. Well
Thank you.
said, Jay. Absolutely 100%. I think that's a perfect place to leave it. I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to go ahead and mute the other speakers while I do a couple of quick closing remarks. Wow, what another great meeting. I love these Monday night meetings. They're so cool. And you know what I love most? I was just sitting here listening to everyone express their thoughts tonight and telling me a little bit about their background, and I'm starting to get to know you guys, and this is a perfect example. It's a small group, it's a microcosm of the bigger movement out there, but we have just seen in this meeting tonight the broad coalition that's being built, right? We've got communists here, we've got old guard Republicans, we've got conservatives, we've got independents, we've got former Democrats, we've got progressives and liberals and libertarians like me. We've got, a little bit of everybody here, and we've been through the matrix. We took the red pill, and we see that so much of this is a lie. So much of this is manipulation of voters by the media to achieve a desired result. And a lot of us have awakened from that matrix, and thank God. So here we are. We now see the path forward. We know what we have to do to save the country. And we've finally got a candidate who sees things the way that we do. We don't have to agree with Bobby 100% on everything. It's very unlikely that you'll ever find a candidate that you agree with 100% on every single issue. But I think that, we agree with Bobby on probably 80% or better of the issues. And boy, those are good odds. Those are really, really good odds. A couple of things I'll say about me. I've actually known Bobby for 16 years on a personal basis. But I am not officially affiliated with the campaign. I want to be clear. This is my disclaimer that I do not speak for Bobby. I do not speak for the campaign. I'm not a campaign spokesperson at all. And I'm on purpose kind of keeping my independence and my distance from the campaign. And that these meetings that I host on Twitter every Monday night are not officially sanctioned by the RFK for President campaign. This is a place where independent minded people can come together, ask questions, express their views. I think all of us in our hearts support Bobby, but I don't want to be shackled by the demands of being associated with the campaign, because then I will have to cheerlead for everything that the campaign does, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So I prefer to retain my independence. You've probably noticed if you follow me here on Twitter that I don't always cheerlead everything. I think that candidates make good decisions and sometimes make bad decisions. And I want to be in a position where I can call out a decision that might be a bad strategic decision. If I were working for the campaign, of course, I would have to say, oh, everything he does is great. Everything he does is perfect. And that goes against my own integrity and my own standards. So I feel it's important to keep my independence and to keep a couple of steps back from the campaign so that I don't lose my focus and my objectivity, and to really be able to assess this candidacy fairly and honestly. So I hope that you will appreciate that. And I do recommend that if you do want to get involved officially with the campaign, there are meetings being organized on Zoom and on Facebook by a lady named Sophia Erik, Erik. If you're not already following her, I would recommend that you give her a follow. And I think tomorrow night there is a Zoom meeting and a Facebook meeting that's officially sanctioned by the campaign, where you can learn more about volunteer opportunities, how to help raise funds, and do those things that the campaign really needs some help with. So I would definitely recommend that you guys get involved with that. And I'm definitely volunteering for the campaign, but I just don't speak for the campaign in any official capacity. So that's my disclaimer. And I want to thank everybody again for coming out tonight. Thank you for making time for us in your Monday night. I know your time is valuable and your energy is precious. So thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign. I want to go all the way, and I know you do too. I don't want to see your time and energy wasted on a campaign that's not going anywhere. I think we know this campaign is really making waves. I think Bobby has a real chance at making it all the way to the White House. And for now, I guess we're running in the Democratic Party. So it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you back here next Monday night. Have a wonderful evening. God bless. Good night.